Consumers are using wearables, and this is the shift, not just to track data, but they're actually using it to change behavior. For 25, your prediction was that the metaverse and the VR fitness would fail. Not only did it fail, but Meta actually completely pulled out of fitness.
More and more this being offline in general, counter to what we were saying on wearables and everything else, but like not being on social, not tracking every single thing, not focusing on technology, like getting away and just living.
Welcome back to L.I.F.T.S. This is our predictions special. I'm Matthew Januszek. I'm drinking my non-alcoholic drink. This is not a sponsor, but this is my Haslo. They sent me a few cans of this, and it's meant to elevate my mood. So I'm hoping I've got an elevated mood for this episode. And I'm here with my co-host Mo. How's your mood today, Mo?
Well, it's good. I feel like that is a prediction hack. I did get my Haslo cans too, but I should have packed them. But no, it's good. I'm in New York. It's cold as heck. A few degrees colder than DC, which is where I came up from this morning. But I'm really excited for our third annual prediction show. But before that, I want to. It's one thing for us to have this episode and just make predictions and talk about whatever comes to mind. But it's another thing to get them
here we
right.
go. Here we go.
Another thing to get them right. I've got to say this. So let me just say collectively. Let me start collectively. We were 80% accurate, and I use ChatGPT to figure out our prediction. 80% accurate in what we got. But there's always a winner. There's always a winner. You got the Haslo hack today. I'm actually wearing the same sweater I wore last year to wish me some good luck. But as much as I love you guys, I did come in on top. I'm just going to say my predictions came in at a score of 9.2 out of 10. And then our guest here, Anthony Vennare, landed second at 8.6. And if there's a winner, there's always someone that has to come in third. Matthew, you were in third, 8.4 out of 10. But all really, really good. So across the board, like I said, we were 88% accurate in a year which was defined by volatility and GLP-1 and AI acceleration. We're going to get into all of this here. But in today's episode, things are going to get pretty interesting. And so joining us again this year, as he has done the last 2 years, is one of the sharpest analysts and operators in the entire fitness and wellness ecosystem, who made us a little bit jealous of his new Fitt HQ in Pittsburgh, which Matthew and I are going to go check out. So we've got Anthony Vennare, co-founder of Fitt Insider. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Always good to chat with you guys. And I think I want to see the records on that, Matthew. I don't know if I believe it. I don't know if you pre-trained that AI to give him the more credit than us.
I have read it, and I'm definitely not going to leave it there. Like, as we get into this, I'm going to challenge a few of these scores that his ChatGPT gave him. I'm sure ChatGPT kind of like whenever it talks to me, it always treats me very, very nicely, and I think it's a built-in flaw. So we'll have to see how balanced it is, Mo.
No, I believe it. I know most guys. He knows what's going on, obviously.
Well, I might look. Someone had to do the research and set the pre-read notes, so I did elect to do that. So next year it could be one of you.
Okay.
I'm excited to chat again, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, look, let's jump straight into it. So section one then is big companies and big tech, and I'll just provide a little bit of an overview for everybody. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through 4 different categories. We've got big companies, big tech, where we'll provide our flex and fail, and we'll also give our predictions for 2026. We then go into the second section, which is small and medium-sized fitness businesses. Then we've got trends and consumer behavior. And then finally, we've just got general predictions for the year ahead. So we've got 4 categories, and each one of us will review our results from last year, and then we'll give our predictions for 2026, and we'll see how accurate we are or not. So the first section is big companies, big tech. Most predictions from last year was that Apple would maintain its dominance in fitness, and also a prediction that Aura would be the breakout leader. According to his chat GPT, they've scored you an 8 out of 10 on Apple, where they basically said that Apple went deeper into vitals, women's health, men's health, and mobility analytics on watch and iOS. But they've said cultural dominance is now fragmented with Strava, Garmin, Aura, who all own powerful niches and communities. So you've been given an 8 out of 10 on that one. And then in relation to Aura, definitely a major hit. Dexcom and Aura created the landmark consumer clinical integration deal. Aura Labs launched, and they have doubled down on science and women's health positioning, and Aura became the ring for women's health, sleep, and recovery. So you got a 10 out of 10 on that one, Mo. So I guess first question is, what are your thoughts on your prediction for last year, and what are your thoughts for 2026?
Well, I think on this one, maybe the part that ChatGPT did not get is that I do think that Apple went deeper, and especially with the new release, you look at the features that they introduced in Apple Watch Ultra, the AI coaches and workout functions, which came out this year. They've also added in things like the Vitals app, and just they continue to invest in their health and wellness ecosystem. And Aura, of course, hit a $11 billion valuation, continues to innovate in the market, and it's just going deeper into healthcare, as well as they have some large contracts in military. So I do think that those were key. I'm actually sticking with wearables as a category in 26, but instead of brands, I'm going to go with wearables are going fully mainstream. And we've talked about the impact that wearables have had, and the benefits. I mean, you and I, Matthew, talk about this all the time about how we have changed our behavior. How I've been 25, actually really adapted my training, and I found that if I listen to my wearable, I actually am healthier. 2025 was probably the year that I got the least sick, but probably worked the most and traveled the most, and I feel the best. So I think a lot of consumers are going to understand that. So wearables are going to really cross the threshold into becoming default behavior. And we've seen this shift happening a little bit. So the global wearables market crossed 1.4 billion users in 2025. More people have smartwatches than ever before, with almost 450 million users. We just did an episode on smart rings, which is the fastest growing wearables category, with 25% year over year growth. And then you're getting sub $150 wearables from companies like Amazfit that are actually pretty good. Like they're maybe not as designed as thoughtfully as some of them are premium products, but they're doing really good. So what's happening is that consumers are using wearables, and this is a shift, not just to track data, but they're actually using it to change behavior. Um, so it's going from the prosumer to the mass market. And I think what we're going to see in 2026 are wearables going mainstream, more integration with insurance, with insurance companies, more preventative care initiatives, more companies in our category incorporating biometric data into training and recovery and lifestyle. And again, we're seeing a lot of companies starting already to do that. So the prediction is that by the end of 2026, wearables will be one of the most common tools that we're using in our category, and that they're also going to be the onboarding layer for health, fitness, and longevity.
So Anthony, I wouldn't mind getting you to jump in on that. Like, so how do you think he did in terms of his predictions for 2025? Would you agree with that? And then also, what are your thoughts on his suggestion for 2026?
No, I definitely agree. I think it's very clear the what Aura has done. I think the Mo's comments on Apple, if you know the market, you know that they're making moves. I think public facing, it's not as consumer relevant at the moment because there's a lot to do. There's a lot that they need to do that I think is changing. So agree on both of those. And definitely on the wearable side, I think that still, and I know I mentioned this last time, we are at a point where there is a value proposition to the consumer that wearables are giving that I still don't think is there. I have my scores, I have my stuff, cool. Like that's awesome. But what next? We are bridging that gap, and Mo was right in that the barrier between healthcare and health and wellness and vitals, and like if I'm going to function and I'm growing in that category and I'm using my aura and I'm using these things, if there's not a health outcome that's tracked to it, it's still somewhat wasting time for most consumers, the average consumer. And I think until that point happens where it all converges to where I can use that information to better, improve my life, my health, and make informed decisions and changes, which I think for a lot of people that are using it, it's just not there yet for them. And that's not the fault of the wearable. It's the ecosystem and healthcare in general and what's going on. So when that changes, that's the holy grail. And that's where, with what we do at Fitt and everything, we've continually grown in coverage in health tech and health and wellness and healthcare because as that wall between healthcare and consumer breaks down, it's the world will be so different for all of us when that time happens that and I'm hoping that 2026 is the year, but I still just don't know. But I agree that's the direction we're heading. It just feels like we've been heading there for a long time, at least for us, at least.
That moves into your prediction, Anthony, which was that wearables would move deeper into healthcare. We've got that reality as a direct hit. There's a number of sort of different examples that Mo's provided, in particular Dexcom and Aura and Levels. But I again wanted to get your thoughts on how you think you did in how your prediction lined up to what actually happened over the last 12 months, and then what are your thoughts for this category for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I just was early, I guess. It's happening. It's just not happening. Like if you look at, Dexcom and Abbott all going consumer products now and over the counter and looking to scale what they're doing out there, and wearables where they're at, every new product wearable, whether it be hydration sensors and other things, I think it's already in available, but the market and the consumer just aren't caught up yet. Because if you talk to even people that I know that are power users of an Aura or Whoop or other stuff, they still kind of feel like, oh, it's awesome, it's there, it's info, but is it really making many changes? It's informing stage still, in my mind at least. So I think that I was right in theory, but not as direct as some of the things you guys have landed because it's just not happening yet at scale. And my prediction for that market overall going forward is I actually think there's going to be we see it now. Function, superpower, others. There is this shift of everything that we previously looked at as wellness is now going to fall under the banner of health. And I think wearables will be under that banner. And the market is going to be leading with the amount of money that's being spent and the amount of companies popping up. It'll be shifting towards biomarkers. And I even think the wearable data will be kind of bundled under that biomarker concept where everybody's more concerned with improving the tests overall and the blood tests and the sleep scores and the biomarkers. And that is what the consumer for 2026 will be focused on is the overall biomarker health picture, the call it diagnostics. Obviously, nobody wants you to call it that because then it's regulated. But that concept is going to be the focus for the consumer because honestly, that's where the money in the market is going. It's so much money is being raised and so much money is being put towards, you know, rebranding what was once fitness, then health, or then wellness, now health into healthcare.
Matthew, moving on to you, you actually nailed this one, I think better than anyone even predicted. And for 25, your prediction was that the metaverse and the VR fitness would fail. Not only did it fail, but Meta actually completely pulled out of fitness for the Quest headset. So yeah, you got a 10 out of 10. You might have scored the highest out of all of us in this category. So that was a hit. But then
Nice.
you also had a second prediction, which was that levels, just direct to consumer CGMs would ultimately fail. And I think you were also correct on that because what's really happened is a lot of these companies, like Aura as an example, has integrated CGM into their offering. Ultrahuman has integrated CGM into their offering. Abbott Lingo, in a lot of cases, has not really fully um, taken off. So I think you are right on both of your predictions as it ties to big tech. What do you kind of any comments on that, and what's your prediction for 2026?
I'm hoping some of your knowledge is now is starting to rub off on me because I would have never
It
have
clearly
put
has.
myself into a person that would predicted to be accurate when it comes to big tech. But yeah, I'm glad I did well on that one, Mo. So thank you very much for your inspiration. I guess my predictions for 2026 is the first one is more related to the bricks and mortar health club market, but I think we're going to see a lot more companies entering in what I would call this sort of computerized or motorized strength training. I think that's going to go a lot more mainstream. There's a number of companies that are in that sector at the moment, eGym being one of the larger brands, and Technogym. You've also got Tonal within this space, but I could certainly see over the next 12 months, we're gonna see a lot more around that. I think there's going to be a lot more metrics that are going to come out in terms of people being able to and wanting to measure things like load, power, range, velocity, and that this will become a little bit more standardized than what it is today. And I know I'm going out a little bit on a ledge with that, because whether that can happen in 12 months or not, I'm not sure. But I think that's my first big tech one. And the second point, which again, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb. Hopefully the confidence that I've got from getting this first one right won't won't turn on me. But the other one I think is quite interesting. I've been looking at this company called Sweat Pals. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those.
Yeah.
And what they're doing. Are you either of you familiar to a level where you'd be able to give a bit more of an in-depth overview of their business model?
Yeah, it's funny, the Sweat House thing, because I know in our Fitt Insider one, and something we've written about a ton, is the social fitness side of things. And I think Sweat House has done a phenomenal job being the underlying platform for people to book, discover, register, whether it be meetups, events, activities. It's really cool because there's always been MindBody, there's always been Eventbrite, but a brand that has focused more on these kind of secondary gatherings where, at one point, what was that one? Oh, it was meetup.com. It was like, back in the day, for forever, years and years and years, there was Meetup where, like, locally the Pittsburgh Run Club or the Ruck Group, and they had meetup.com, and then they had Facebook pages, and then people were on text groups. And I think, Sweat House has just been a great business to come and centralize all of that, to make it one community fitness hub and underlying place for people to use. And obviously that's on some of our prediction lists, and that's a category we're super bullish on, which is the social side of fitness, active lifestyle, recreation is just still, it's so massive, but still so undervalued.
My prediction for that category is that I think it's going to increase. But if you look at some of the big brands that are out there at the moment, so High Rocks is obviously very well known, and what they've done is they've created these events, and now they're bringing them back into gyms, but they've got this community that's fairly transient, so it's not necessarily linked to one location. You've got Lifetime that are now coming up with their version of High Rocks, I guess, and again that will sort of take, from what I think, that will take their brand from inside the four walls of a gym and into different venues across the country for competitions. CrossFit did something very, very similar. And we had a gentleman on just a couple of weeks ago in the podcast called Will Beraton that was talking about some of these group exercise events and that were also happening in different venues. And it reminds me very much about what happened in the nightclub industry. And if you look at some of the big entertainment brands in Ibiza at the moment, so you've got Circo Loco, you've got Ants, you've got Glitterbox, and those are, instead of them being attached to a specific nightclub or venue, what they'll do is they'll partner up with different venues, and they'll take these on tours across the world to some extent. And so I think what we'll start to see, and Peloton have alluded to this as well, where they're now, they've gone back to their roots and they're trying to create these celebrity trainers that they want to get behind and support them to build their own brands. I think you're going to get different fitness formats, and whether it's DJs like Diplo or one of the lead trainers from Peloton, I think what we're going to see is using technology to be able to have particularly trainers and instructors go to different venues or go on to world tours or go into different bricks and mortar locations and take their brands beyond being attached to a club. And I think that's a complete sort of, reverse on what we've seen so far within the sort of traditional health and fitness industry. And I think what the secret to that is for some of these, particularly independent gyms, to figure out how they can be partnering with some of these brands where they can promote their facility and an exercise concept, and not necessarily be limited by the location where they're based. So that's my long-winded answer to the big tech prediction.
I think you pretty much teased my response to the next section. So let me start with that, which is the small to medium fitness businesses and our predictions there. So last year, I'm going to consolidate all of our responses, because last year we all pretty much said the same thing. Anthony talked about strong Pilates and modality-driven studios would explode. I mean, he was spot on for that. Strength-based Pilates became the fastest growing segment. Then Matthew, you talked about that boutique Pilates would boom, but boutique fitness overall would struggle. I think that's pretty much right. Right, for the most part, you've seen that you've seen that happen. And then what I talked about was that mid-market chains would win, chains like EOS and Vasa, Choose, and others, and that basically came true. They all posted record membership, record EBITDA, and a lot of these mid-market HVLP chains, including Crunch Fitness, became innovation zones, adding in recovery, um, Pilates rooms, and so on. So I think for the small to medium fitness business segment, we all hit it. Really, in 2025, we predicted that Pilates and strength Pilates, especially along with HLP, would do well, and that's happened. Moving on to 2026 predictions, um, Anthony, I will start with you for this area. What do you expect 2026 to bring? Is it a continuation of 2025, or do you think this will be something else?
I think, I mean, the small to medium business segment, the changes that I am excited to see, and I'm hopefully seeing more of, is less people purchasing into some of these generic franchise groups and building their own brands. The amount of people that I see, because I mean, we all saw what happened with Expo, and how that's gone for a lot of people, and just generally like the fitness market. I think there's a lot of people that attack the fitness market, especially the franchise side of like, it's I don't like how they do it, and I don't like how they build brands, and it lacks a lot of passion. I was a gym owner. We owned a ton of gyms back in the day, Joe and I, and the passion, excitement, and the care that goes into developing these brands. Nowadays, I think people are starting to develop their own products and interests. And with what's happening, the opportunity to build, whether it be what Othership and Remedy Place and others are doing on the longevity side, build my own version of that somewhere, or what's happening on the boutique side. I'm excited to see more and more, call them mom and pop, 1, 2, 3 location places, build their own brands and build their own concepts and do it really, really well. So that's one prediction I hope comes true, because we love seeing that side of things. And then on the other side of the fitness sector itself, um, I think we're going to continually, which is an easy prediction, but it's going to continually be strength training more and more, like every day. And we see it, we know it, it's out there a lot, but the average person, especially outside of the coast, is just now learning about the benefits, importance, especially among the older population, and just in general, of strength training, and seeing that continually grow is going to be super exciting.
I would definitely agree with that. I think internationally, I traveled a lot internationally this year, and in some ways, they follow the US in terms of trends and even businesses. Franchise businesses are still growing a lot. So you have a lot of instructors. And the reason why franchise is attractive is because you have a passion for a particular brand or modality, and you kind of have everything in a box. As long as you can get capital, and a lot of people take out loans and things like that, you're able to do it. But you're right, Anthony, in that kind of stifles innovation, right? It kind of
Mhm.
stifles creating your own product where potentially there's a lot more value. So I really like that. Matthew, what is your prediction for this segment?
I've got a flex and a fail. My fail, and I apologies in advance to all my Pilates friends, but I think that we're going to see in maybe towards the end of 2026, we're going to see a bit of a top on the Pilates boom. I think we had, again, Will on the other week, and he was mentioning on ClassPass pretty much all of the classes on his app were Pilates of some form. I think a lot of the major cities now, tier one urban markets, I think are getting relatively saturated, and there's going to be a point of where that can't continue to grow. That's not to say that there are not opportunities outside of some of those key markets, and I'm referring to the US at the moment, but I know internationally that it's really yet to kick off in Eastern Europe and Asia. They've still really not had that Pilates boom. So, but I certainly think in the US, I think we're going to sort of see a little bit of a leveling off of that, and as the competition increases so much, I think in terms of a bit of a flex. I think to build on what Anthony said, I'm quite excited about some of these new, I guess you'll call them wellness concepts. Like there's one that Mo and I were exchanging a conversation around just a few weeks ago called the Jevity Club, and this is in Texas, and it's a wellness workspace social club as they call it, but it's got a gym, it's got sauna, it's got red light, all of your different sort of cold plunges, recovery. It seems to have a juice bar. So it just seems to have pulled together all of the different elements that you would want, but it's in this really well-designed, premium-looking destination. And so I hope and I believe that we're going to see a few more of these opening up, and whether people figure out how to franchise and expand them or not, I'm not sure. But I'd predict that there's definitely going to be a number of businesses similar to this Jevity Club, which you can check out on Instagram if anybody wants to go and have a look at it. It's called Jevity, GEVITY.club, and have a look at it. A beautiful concept. Not sure who's behind it, but seems to be very, very well executed.
And Mo, you hit it on the head for me. It's not that it's more that I think that the market is maturing enough that there's going to be just new concepts and new things, and they're not built for the traditional mold of open a bunch, scale, franchise, and go from there. Like people are developing, like even in New York, like Moss, the members club Moss in New York, and things like that. Like, and it's cool to see. Obviously, I live in Pittsburgh, but in Pittsburgh, in Cleveland, and other places, there are people developing really nice, really thoughtful longevity clubs and concierge doctor clinics that also are fitness facilities. And there's the contrast therapy flotation tank, like, and they're local brands, and it's exciting to see. And maybe one day they'll scale and franchise, maybe whatever, but like the market and the interest is there, and people are just building new and cool and different things, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, most said that to me. It's we've not seen the rise of the independent creative for quite some time. It has been cookie cutter. Every gym looks the same. They have the same equipment, and I think some of these new ones, it's really refreshing to see this this whole grassroots movement that. Maybe because it is relatively sophisticated and service-led, maybe that is the reason why it's not as easy for some of the big brands to jump in on this quite yet.
Well,
Mo, what are your thoughts?
Took away my prediction for the S&P segment, but it's really a combination of what you both have been talking about for 26. So my second prediction is that innovation goes hyper-local. So I'm talking about premium, neighborhood-based wellness. In 2026, wellness is really going to shift from a global scale. Think about these big brands like Anthony, you and I were just talking about, the hyper local ecosystems. If you want to see the future, I'm in New York today, but look at cities like New York, what's happening in London, Austin, Matthews, you talked about LA, the Gold Coast of Australia, where I was at 2 weeks ago, and even Dubai. These cities are becoming wellness R&D labs. Why? Because they have consumers with high disposable income, dense populations, early adapters, strong community cultures. And these consumers are not only invested in wellness, but they're willing to pay for quality, recovery, personalization, and longevity. So what we're seeing as things like recovery studios, mobility labs, hybrid Pilates and strength, boutique run clubs, we've talked about that a lot, longevity clubs, sauna cold plunges, premium group training. I mean, there's just a lot of innovation coming out of these areas. And I think that, this next year, maybe the next, 1 to 5 years is really, these core markets are going to be these labs that ultimately we're going to find what's going to be able to scale internationally. And innovation, I believe in 26 is really going to come from local entrepreneurs and innovators, and not big brands like what we've seen over the last 20 years. So the prediction is that in 2026 is the year that local and premium community-built studios will outperform big box expansion in relevance, cultural significance, and loyalty.
That's a big claim there, Mo.
That's a big one. But it's already happening. We're seeing it happen. I mean, Anthony, you talked about, even in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, right? Look, I was at ABC's CEO's house a couple of weeks ago, Bill Davis. He lives in Columbus, Ohio. And he was even telling me in Columbus, Ohio, there are incredible innovations and studios that are opening up that aren't national. They maybe have 2 to 3 locations, but they are premium and they're always packed and serving that core audience. And I just think that when you look at personalization, just like healthcare, it's hard to do that from an ivory tower. You need to be close to food sources, local cultures, local trends. So I think that's why 26 is really going to give big brands a run for their money.
Yeah.
We'll move on to trends and consumer behavior. This is the 2025 prediction from UMO was that GLP-1s would reshape the industry. And looks like you had a hit on that one. And then the second prediction that you made was that women's health would become a strategic priority. And your chat GPT gives you 10 out of 10 for GLP-1s and 9 out of 10 for women's health. So how do you assess yourself against the score? What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your predictions for 2026?
Well, I think because I went first to that question last year and I'm going first this year, I cheated a little bit. I mean, that was like the obvious. If you could pick the one obvious one, it would be that. So that was a pretty easy one. But I think that the surprise to me with GLP-1 is how quickly, I mean, it grew even more quickly than what I predicted. But one thing that's interesting is that internationally, it's not as big as it is in the US. So I do think that, like, for instance, I was in Australia speaking at a conference and I'd mentioned GLP-1 thinking that people would know what it is. And they were just looking at me like with blank stares. They did not know it. So when I mentioned Ozempic and Wegovy and brands, they recognized that a bit more, but it still is very, very early. So I do think that we're going to see that grow. And women's health, we're going to continue to invest in that. Um, for 2026, in this particular category, what I'm noting is a shift from aesthetics to holistic well-being. So again, continuing on with my other predictions in the other 2 areas that we talked about. But if you think about the last couple of years, right, we've all been traveling to these shows. Matthew, you and I have been at FIBO and HFA for the last couple of years. And you look at body specific brands, Booty Builder being one of them, has really scaled and grown really well. Um, but instead, I think the trend now is going to be away from body focused aesthetics to more whole body well being. And again, plays really in line with what we've been talking about this entire episode. But this is driven by number one, you have an aging demo, right? So you've got people in the 30s, 40s, and 50s growing older. You've got a younger generation that, even though they're in their 20s, are focused on longevity. You've got hybrid brands like High Rocks and Hybrid Condition coming up. You've got a culture around recovery saying that, not all like that stress is not necessarily good. Some stress is good, some stress is bad. So I just think that the data is signaling right now that aesthetics is important and that is going to be a side effect, but feeling good becomes the product and not just having the six pack. And consumers aren't chasing six packs anymore, but they're really focused on things like energy, stamina, strength, balance, resilience. And if you look at wearable metrics and even how the wearable UX has shifted, it's focused on that. So I think 2026 is going to be a focus away from just aesthetics, but that could be the byproduct, but really a focus on overall well-being.
Makes me wonder, like some of these, I know this glute training's been popular, which is the one you referred to. I just wonder how much of those kind of ideas are really fads, which are very difficult to build your business on. I know a lot of times, particularly gyms, have got to respond to those sorts of ideas, but separating the more short-term fad-based ideas from the longer-term trends.
Yeah, agreed. And in fact, when I look at certain posts, even recently on social media, I'm not all that big on social media like you are, Matthew, but even some of the stuff that you've sent me, you could tell that the focus, even with clothing lines, and you look at the innovation happening there in athleisure, it really has been out of aesthetics largely and more into overall well-being. So I think you're seeing that shift impact everything from supplements to clothing and wearables and so on.
Have you got any comments on that, Anthony?
Yeah, I think my kind of predictions overall tag onto that, which is, but even more so, it's the drift into our food, our homes, everything. Like you think about companies recently like Moldco raising money about mold. It's wellness. A while ago we talked about like everything is wellness, and now it's the prediction of, for me, the trends are it's expanding into everything, like the food, the processed food versus the organic food versus actual, like where food's coming from, what it is, and that's impacting CPG, actual grocery store, the food that you're eating from both vegetables and meats and otherwise, like the that focus from the consumer, and that's, the food that you're eating, the clothes, like Mo, you said the clothes you're wearing, but it's not just about the focus of aesthetic versus wellness. It's more like what is in the clothes that I'm wearing,
Yes.
microplastics, containment, all that stuff. Same thing for um, your home, the like the mold that's there, the water you're drinking, the air quality, the products, the sheets that you're on, everything that you are touching, like eliminating plastics from your Tupperware, going to glass containers. I think a lot of stuff that we all that are look at and know, but that's expanding rapidly to everybody. And even for me at least, it is mixing under the lens of like generalized health. It's going from wellness to health, and the health is attached to all of those categories. And the trend of wanting to understand what's in the things we're eating, the same supplements. Look at Supco, look at other places, look at what Thorne just came out with on their report about the consumer knowledge of what's in the products. And I think for a while, and it kind of, for me, it kind of touches on the gyms and the small market too. It's like there are these really big companies that have been selling us crap for a long time. And a lot of brands look at fitness, wellness, health as a way to make easy money. It's the things they sell on Amazon where none of the actual ingredient is in the product that you're buying. It's in the clothes that you're wearing. It's in the stuff in your house. It's in the products you're putting up. I think there is going to be a layer of trust that is needed on anything that is coming in near around my body as a consumer. And that is going to be a big focus for 2026. And obviously it's driven by the political landscape and what's happening there and just generally, but what the consumer needs both from their expectation and then the validation of trust. Like there's an app called Oasis that, I don't know if you've ever seen it, huge
Yeah.
following on social. It's like, they go and get independent testing and or they get the tests that water companies are doing on the bottled water and the food and the things. And you're like, man, there's so much bad stuff in what we're consuming. And then that doesn't even touch on the plastics and microplastics and everything else. So I really think that massive trend in the actual ingredients and quality of products is a big one for me. And then generally, it's on the other side. It's the shift from being fit to being healthy, and it's going to be called longevity. It's going to be called whatever, but it's consistent health. It's not fitness. It's not being and looking fit. It's being feeling good and being healthy. Is all of that's going to lend towards that shift.
Mm. And just going back to your prediction for last year, then, so your view was that offline fitness would boom. So how do you think that lined up in relation to your prediction?
I mean, definitely for what I'm seeing, the it goes back to like Sweat Pals. You have to book it, but then you want to get there, you want to be in person, you want to experience it, you want to have a good time. And then I even think deeper down that path, like it's going to continue to grow of offline fitness. It's focusing on being in person and experiencing things, but then more and more this being offline in general, counter to what we were saying on wearables and everything else, but like not being on social, not tracking every single thing, not focusing on technology, like getting away and just living. And there's going to be it already happening with the products that are out there, but more and more, I don't want to be online. I don't want to be in front of a computer. I don't want to be in front of a screen. I want to, be outside, experience things, and then I want to have like my little circle of health, hopefully. And there's going to be a ton of apps. Like there's the Brick one that is really cool where it can shut your phone down. There's Be Present, which is an app that I really like. There's a ton of those things out there. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that too.
We've spoken about that in a previous episode, but I follow a bunch of DJs on social media. It was an early career that I was very passionate about nightclubs and raves and festivals, but you can start seeing a lot of these DJs now posting these private events that they're doing where they're just no phones whatsoever, and then you look down at the comments of people and everyone's like, oh, it's great to see people engage with the DJ instead of looking at the phones. And so you can start seeing that with a lot of younger people that are going out, and I would agree with you there. I think it's just going to be time where people will just totally rebel against that. I'm hoping it's sooner with my two teenage kids, to be honest, but they're not quite caught up yet.
Yeah.
Matthew, so in 2025, you predicted that strength would continue its decade of growth, and you got a 10 out of 10 on this one. In a lot of ways, strength became the default modality for new gym goers. And in fact, the interesting thing is tracking new gym members, we used to see them go to the treadmill first, but now they're coming in with strength programs. So you're seeing that evolution happen. How do you kind of think that prediction went for you, and what do you have for this category in 2026?
As your chat GPT said, I think I got a 10 out of 10 for that one. I think that's fairly safe to say. No surprises there, and I'm sure that will continue. It'll be interesting to see how it will continue. And I think on my early comment, I think there'll be a little bit more information and data that people will look for, because there's very little quality information you can get around your strength training. Although I do understand that that's going to be a challenge for a wearable or a technology company to solve that to the level that probably people want. But I think my trend prediction for this year is based on an episode that we did a few weeks ago, which is talking about the decline of alcohol and the rise of some of these functional social beverages. I was also reading Anthony's newsletter prior to this interview, and they also they make a note for an Australian brand, Hopper, that makes makers of Australian hop-infused nootropic drinks. And I think there's a number of companies that are raising quite a lot of money in that space at the moment. It's a space that I'm pretty passionate about as someone that's interested in my health. Every now and again, I still do drink every now and again, which completely screws up my health and readiness score. So I'm keen to probably kick that habit a little bit more permanently in 2026. But also, I think there's some really nice alternatives out there. There's a lot of innovation in these THC infused beverages, which are now infusing things like THC, and they've got a lot of natural energy, kind of energy based ingredients that not only kind of give you that warming effect that you probably get from alcohol, but it also gives you some stimulation. And they're combining that with a number of different sort of herbs and I don't know what you call them. What do you call some of these, like, functional ingredients? Is that what you call them? Functional ingredients?
Nootropics.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think THC beverage, Kratom, is one I'm keeping an eye on. I think that's pretty interesting, like particularly around where I'm based in sort of Southern California, Orange County. There's these Kratom bars that are opening up where you go in and they have all these different powders, and you can have whatever mix you want. You can have like one for your mind that helps you concentrate. You can have like a bliss. You can have one that sort of gives you energy. You can have one that makes you sleep. And you go in there, and this lady sort of mixes these powders, and then they give you these flavors, and they seem to be quite common. And although there's some mixed reviews around Kratom itself, I do see that that's increasing, and I think as more information comes available, I can see that becoming a great alternative to alcohol. You've got the mushroom-based beverages, Lion's Made and Chaga, and a bunch of stuff there, as well as some of the sort of psilocybin that you're starting to see being included in a few of these drinks. And then finally, these, what they called a bit like the Haslo one here that I'm not promoting, but he did send me a big case of this stuff. So the adaptogen with amino acids and nootropics in. So I think that whole category will set to expand, and I think we'll continue to see the decline in alcohol sales by the end of 2026.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I do think that there needs to be, to back to Anthony's point around the efficacy and really what's going into these products. Like right now, it's not really governed. What type of testing is going into it? I mean, in a lot of ways, you've got to really trust the executive team and the brand into kind of what's going in these products, and then do consumers know what they're putting into their bodies? That would be my concern.
Anthony, what is this a space that you've done much research into?
Absolutely. I mean, we've looked a ton at the category itself, and I think overall the stats are there. People aren't drinking. People are trying to drink less, and they're looking at you know, how they feel based off of that. And you do see the pop-ups of Kratom and other things, but then at the same time, you see there's, what is it, the Live Free drink, the little blue bottle one that has a bunch of people addicted to it. Apparently, we were just doing
Well,
some research on that, and there's a lot of ups and downs from it all. But I do think the concept of the functional beverages of feeling better is there. But like Mo said, it's like, what is actually in them? What is good? What is bad? How does it actually impact you? And then that kind of, for me, crosses into the CPG sector, which is, I think wellness is eating CPG. Like if you think about proteins in everything, literally it's insane. Like every new product that you're like, I don't
Protein.
need protein in this
yes.
thing. So like, I think that is happening. The beverage space is, everything is wellness now. And like, look at Poppy and look at those acquisitions. Those just fueled 5 years of unbelievable growth in that category because of the acquisitions. And the same thing goes for the drinking space. What is it? Tom Holland. Tom Holland now has a non-alcoholic beer, and what Athletic Brewing set the category itself. But now with everybody going in it, I think it's gonna and now that there's validation from consumer spend, it's just gonna be massive. And the tail end of that I'm excited about is, I think we are looking at addiction, recovery, sobriety, all of those things as a part of the industry growing. And you see, like we had an event that we hosted as a partnership with Eudaimonia down in West Palm Beach not too long ago, and there was a lot of talk of ibogaine and
What's ibogaine?
Ibogaine. I don't want to butcher it, but like, if you've ever seen ayahuasca, ibogaine, it's like these uh psychedelic style drugs that have mind altering capabilities. And the research around ibogaine is that it can help with addiction and PTSD and all of those things. So I think the growth in those categories, psilocybin, ibogaine, DMT, ayahuasca, and in those being bundled under the wellness category, that is still going to be pretty small, I think, in 2026. But the growth around that, and now that at a major consumer event like Eudaimonia, what we were doing, that there were doctors speaking on the topic of how ibogaine can help you with addiction,
Wow.
massive opportunity and growth. And that it kind of just pigeonholes down to like that everything is wellness category, and hopefully more of the products we're seeing can have some science behind what people are taking.
What do you think about that? Because there's two ways. We talked about it a little bit a few weeks ago. Now, clearly, for anybody in the alcohol beverage industry, they're going to do everything they can, and they're going to try every trick in the book to lobby government to make sure that none of these new kind of ideas get to mainstream. And with some of the regulation not necessarily being there and some of the effects being questionable, then they're certainly in a strong position. Now you can argue exactly the same about alcohol. So many terrible negative effects around alcohol and crime, and you name it. It's probably one of the worst drugs on the planet. But what are your thoughts in terms of how some of that regulation is going to shake out, primarily due to the weight that a lot of these big sort of major consumer alcohol brands have got on government?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just, what the bill that right now is about, the hemp, the THC in hemp that's out there right now. I mean, the fact that you can, like, I myself, I take very low dose THC to help sleep, and the fact, and it can only be legal over the counter because of the hemp rule, how much THC is in that. The fact that it's even being considered to be banned, I don't understand why or how that's going on. It's things like that where, yeah, I don't get it. I don't know why or how, and I do think there's probably some inner workings, like you said, Matthew, of like, whether it be lobbying or government or other stuff. But I hope it doesn't happen, but judging from past experiences of things, it probably will.
We're about to move on to our final section, which is our big idea around the predictions, or big themes rather, for 2026. So I was actually going to go kick this one off myself. Last year, I talked about the big idea being around fitness and healthcare converging together, and big companies like Apple and Amazon moving deeper into health analytics, and Amazon Clinic expanding. While I think that's happened, I don't think it really went to the extent that I thought it was going to happen. But for this year, I really have a view that is a little bit probably controversial. I predicted that in many episodes that AI in fitness would help improve outcomes. And it fully hasn't happened yet. AI is everywhere, but it's still pretty shallow for most consumers. When we talk to most consumers about their AI and wellness, they're like, "Oh, it's kind of cute. It's a good, it's a gimmick, but I'm not really gonna trust it. It hasn't really become indispensable, and it's just a layer. It hasn't become a true engine yet." So I'm going to say something that's going to surprise a lot of people, given the fact that I spend most of my day in AI. But I think that in 2026 is the year that the AI bubble in fitness and wellness pops. And not because AI isn't transformative, it absolutely is, but because there are too many companies in our industry, and I get this every single day, that are just built in very thin GPT wrappers. Funding for AI in our category is down already by 38%. Retention in AI fitness app is below 5% at 90 days, and most consumers are joining and then leaving. There's no defensibility without proprietary data. So I think a lot of companies are just building these veneers and they're leasing data. And I do believe that in 26, we're going to see the bottom 80% of AI wellness startups that will either shut down or consolidate. And then the top 20% with real data and outcomes of community will actually thrive. When you look at the market, what's happening with companies on the AI side, I think that's very, very different. So I don't think a lot of people are talking about an AI burst like we had the dot-com burst in, which was almost 29 years ago. And I remember this. I learned this in business school. But Alan Greenspan famously warned the industry of irrational exuberance. And you think about companies like Amazon and Cisco and all that led to the dot-com burst back then 29 years ago. That's a little bit different today because unlike that era, the AI bubble, these companies are actually profitable and they're making money. I mean, a lot of them, even like OpenAI that might be losing money, they're still making revenue and they're making material revenue. My comment on the AI bubble being burst is really more in our specific category where I think that the larger companies that have real data outcomes of community, they will thrive, and AI is going to be the infrastructure and not the product. So I think this is a year that the kind of hype on AI ends and the substance really begins.
Anthony, what's your thoughts on that? I know you get a lot of unique insights into some of the investment that's being made. Like, would you go along with that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that I have yet to see any real AI in health and fitness, anyways. I mean, generally speaking, it's all either a lot of hype or it's a lot of conversation that's not truly valuable. And I actually have a concern in general about that. There's a lot of people chasing in functions, trying to build doc in your pocket superpower, saying they're doing it. There's a lot of brands launching now that are coming out and saying they will be that. Like I can't forget the one I just talked to that's doing it, but I don't. I agree with Mo. I think it's not going to be what everybody thinks it is, and they call it the bust this year. But yeah, definitely not what everybody says it's going to be. And I honestly, counter to Mo's point, I agree. I think that's going to be the case for AI in general with a lot of stuff that's happening. Like there, there obviously there's the value in it, but a lot of a lot of the things you're seeing now and the claims that are being made now, and then at least and again, a lot of my conversation is for the average person. When it comes time for them to use the things, it just doesn't work out for them like they expected it. And yeah, definitely in health and wellness overall, there are so many apps and systems and tools and things that we saw decks for that I don't even think exist anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Look, in 25, Anthony, you talked about peptides becoming mainstream, telehealth clinics, and I think you were right. I mean, in a lot of ways, that has happened. What is your prediction from a big theme perspective for 2026?
Yeah, it's funny. I have so many. It's hard to narrow them down. I'm trying to pick my favorite one from the list.
You
Um,
can have more than one if you wish.
okay. Well, I already touched on it. I think everything that I believe in my big predictions were already touched on, but let's start with the main one, which is the kind of invisible, call it invisible infrastructure. It's environmental health, family health, social health. It's all of the things that go on to whole person wellness that aren't fitness related at all. It's we wrote about it not too long ago on the newsletter. Um, your social life, your social health, your family, where you live, living near your friends and family, being access to them, wellness being integrated into like every part of your life, the air you breathe, the water, the toxins, the clothes. I think people will really start to orchestrate and spend dollars, which I do think is going to generally disrupt the fitness market as a whole and the product market. It's people are looking for how they feel and how they live at all times. And it's not just about going to the gym and buying a fitness product and selling a fitness thing. And I think the marketing is going to have to change for the fitness industry. I think just as a whole, the industry is going to be completely shifted because the consumer is going to want this entire layer of health for everything that they do. Like being mindful of where you take your vacations, what you do, how you live, how you spend your social time. Everybody's so busy, everybody's so overworked, the economy is where it is. Like they're going to look at that full landscape of wellness and make decisions based off of that lens. And then the other kind of built on angle of that goes to I think they're going to be doing that while being online and spending the time tracking in wearables and all those things less. It's not going to be about, am I metrically driven to be fit? It's going to be like, do I feel good? Am I happy? Am I centered? Am I calm? And that kind of also goes on to, less subscription, less noise, less, things being sold to me, less consumerism. And that's going to be a wellness lens. There's going to be this drive and push for less buying, less consumerism, less things being made and sold for both the environment and themselves. And again, it's going to get a wellness lens and be the phones that I use, the products that I use, the clothing that I'm being sold. I think the consumer, especially the like millennials and Gen Z, they're getting smarter and it's harder to sell them things and they can look around and go, because of the kind of social and economic environment, they're like, I can't even buy a house right now. I'm not going to buy your thing. I'm not going to do this. Like, I want to be healthy, feel good, and just be happy. And I think it's going to change a lot of the way that the fitness industry had to operate. And it's kind of all the things that I've been saying. I think it kind of lends itself towards health and wellness is the whole person and the whole body. And a lot of what the industry has been, and I don't want to call out names and people, but like there's always these same people cycling through selling the same types of gyms and the same types of products and the same things. And it's like, I don't think that's going to work anymore. And I'm personally happy about it.
Matthew, last year you talked about integrated health solutions becoming mainstream, which got a low score here from our ChatGPT. Great. As much as I want to see that happen, I don't think it necessarily happened. The second thing which you talked about, so you kind of gave us two predictions, is that gyms are going to get redesigned and real estate and within the gym is going to be repurposed to add things in, like strength, recovery rooms, and so on. And that has happened. So you had a direct hit there. What do you think about those predictions from last year, and what do you have in line for 26?
So the first one you said, I was going to challenge you a little bit on that one because I only got a 7, and my reference was RFK Jr. coming in and make America healthy again. And so I think when I did a little bit of research, and you can tell me what your thoughts are on this one, but it does seem as though the presidential fitness conversation has returned. Federal agencies have pushed are pushing preventative health. The military have published this crisis level fitness data. There's this nutrition reform which is accelerated, and I think some of the stuff that Anthony was mentioned about, like some of the ingredients that are in foods now, like I don't think necessarily the mass population were even aware of some of the things like food dyes and anything like that. I certainly didn't have an awareness of it until this became a bit of a thing. So I certainly think that there's been progress in terms of the importance of fitness now, which wasn't around previously, and also how this is now spilling over into what we eat and the pressure on some of the food companies. I even reference the GLP-1s, where there's also been pressure to now bring the price down or making it a lot easier for people to get that at a more affordable price. So So what are your thoughts on that, Mo? Like, was that definitely a foul, or can I get a little bit of a higher point, which will then mean I match you if I get 1
You
point?
would match. No, I think you're right. And I think that the trend is happening. And of course, I think you have earned additional points for that. That absolutely has come true. And I think that, and this is not just with this administration, started with the last administration, with the White House Council for Health, Hunger, and Nutrition. Consumers, to Anthony's point, are wanting to know what's in their food, what's touching their bodies, anything that they consume or touch, their homes, they're paying more attention to. And they know that the air in their homes, the paint that goes in, I mean, everything of building materials to clothing, plastics, foods, and so on, is going to impact their health directly. And to do the right thing in a lot of cases actually doesn't cost more money. It's just you've got to put you might have to reformulate products. So yes, it's going to cost companies money to do it, but from a product perspective, it does not cost more. And consumers are getting smarter about that. So I'll give you some points for that. But for 26, what is your prediction for 26?
Well, there's a couple of things. So number one, I think my view is that will continue. I think that will continue to get a lot more awareness over the next 12 months. And I think if I had to choose one of the points that I've sort of highlighted, which is the move towards more motorized and computerized strength, the social fitness platforms, and the functional beverages replacing alcohol, then I would have to say I think there's my bet is that we're gonna see some probably more measurable difference in these I guess tech platforms that are turning movement into community, such as the guys we've mentioned earlier, whose name escapes me. What are they called? What's the company that is doing this? SweatPal, is it
Yeah.
SweatPal?
Yeah.
SweatPal. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more on that. It wasn't something that I'd recognized prior to doing the research on this, but I think they're going to become a lot more prominent. I think there's going to be a lot more people that are going to be getting involved in that type of, I guess, concept going forward.
Well, we are at time. If you have any comments, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your predictions. If you have any predictions, or if you want to comment on our predictions from last year, or what we have talked about for 2026, let me know. If you're working on a product that could be interesting, also comment and let us know. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us again. We look forward to having you again next year. I'll be rooting back for myself again to be on top of the leaderboard, but wishing you both the best of luck as well.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on again. And I think I do see you probably winning again. So it's just how it goes. I guess you're used to it now.
Well, thanks very much, Anthony. We'll put some details of your newsletter, but if anybody wants to stay up to date with what you guys are doing, and you do like one of the most amazing newsletters I've had from any industry. So where can people sort of sign up to hear about what you guys have got going on?
If you go to fitt.co, fitt.co, you can see all that we're up to. We will talk about it much more publicly, but we own a number of companies now. We have Fitt Insider, the newsletter and content, which we're doubling down on and really expanding in 2026, which will be exciting. More reports, more content, more social. We also own Wellworthy. We made some acquisitions on the Wellworthy side, which is our consumer-facing platform, which you'll see again, rebrand and just massive growth there. And then we have recruiting firm, consulting group, a number of other things, and then a few more that we acquired before the end of the year that we'll announce soon. That anything happening in the health and wellness space, whether it be content or services or events, whatever, we're trying to be the ones doing it.
Well, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did learn one or two things from this, then help us to get this message out to more people by giving us a share, a like, leave a comment. And that's it for me. Thanks for listening to this episode.